Yeah,
Okay.
if we want to sort of shift to Prime 4 talk, Josh, Favlam, Eric, you guys have any questions about Prime 4 you want us to dive into?
I just can't even like I'm so I have so many, I don't know which one to ask, you know? This is like I'm like, I want Prime. I just want to know every little like, does it feel like Prime 1 and 2? Like, does it feel like a traditional, like in that same vein of just it's that I'm trying to get the right. It feels like a 3D Metroidvania, basically. Like, does it feel like that still, or is there some features and from what you guys played that makes it stand out as its own standalone game?
This is going to be an interesting conversation to have. And
All right.
I'm not sure what I'm going to say is going to make people particularly happy, but here are my thoughts on this demo that we got to try. It was about the opening, say, 12 minutes of the game.
Sure.
Cutscenes, opening battle, teach you how to open doors, teach you how to scan, teach you the basics of combat.
Yep.
What you're asking about it feeling like a 3D Metroidvania, I mean, probably, but not from what I played because this was a very linear opening set piece section of the game.
Okay.
And my thoughts on the Metroid Prime 4 demo is that other than it being higher fidelity, we were playing it in 1080, 120. You could have told me this was from Prime 1 and I wouldn't have been able to really tell a difference. This specific section.
Okay.
Now I'm not a fan of Metroid Prime. I've played remastered and I played the original game on I played the GameCube version. And I'm not a big fan of that game in general. But what I found so frustrating about it is exactly what you're saying. I from this opening few minutes, I felt nothing here that made me feel like this is a 15 years in the making, long in development sequel that is a next step up, which I found frustrating and disappointing because the things that we saw in the second trailer for the game about the psychic abilities, those may be influencing the pacing of exploration and puzzles and combat. I'm excited for those, and I'm interested to see the ways in which they'll shape and shake up the design. Didn't see a single lick of that in the demo that we tried. And so the only thing that really
Okay.
impressed me or interested me was mouse mode. I liked that quite a bit. I thought it made the
Yeah.
gameplay feel a lot more responsive and fluid and engaging. But nothing about this specific demo I found game design wise particularly impressive. Now, that's
And
only this demo. There's a lot more to the game,
yeah.
a lot more to
Safe
unlock.
demo. It's a safe
We,
demo.
it's a safe demo,
Yeah.
but I was really disappointed by that.
So
Okay.
the takeaway is if you love Metroid Prime, you're probably gonna love this because it's very
At the
Metroid
very
Prime
least.
at the
Yeah.
very least. But nothing that you saw at this event specifically was necessarily reinventing the wheel for the
No,
series.
not at all.
Got
Okay,
it.
interesting. Good to know. I'm watching your. Oh, okay. Hang on. I see it's different. So I was watching your footage, Thunderstash, and I was seeing like when you were aiming your when you're aiming with your gun, right? It looked like the crosshair was moving on the screen, and then once you kind of got towards the edge of the screen, the the rest of your body followed looking. But I see you're also now like in this room. It's not doing that. Is that like a is if are you in mouse mode right now, or is like when you're in mouse mode, is it following you like a traditional FPS mouse mode shooter? And does it do that weird thing that we saw at the beginning of this video only when you're in like the stick mode, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I was switching, like I said, on the fly the whole time.
Yeah.
So when you're in mouse mode, it's going the direction that you're aiming it. So if I'm moving with the left stick and I have it in mouse mode, my aiming reticle is going to move in the direction that I'm pointing it. It won't just like sit in the middle unless I have my arm,
Interesting.
flat and aim directly in the middle. Like if I move my arm, it's going to move the arm cannon. Like it feels 1-to-1, which I think that's actually what makes it more immersive. Is that like, yo, you're holding an arm cannon right now. Like you gotta watch where you point that thing at all times.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
really cool.
Interesting. Okay.
Stash, did you have any agreements or disagreements with me about the design or the experience here with this demo?
Yeah, it felt like a safe demo. Uh, for fans of Metroid Prime, which I love Metroid Prime. I'm hyped. I
Yeah.
walked away more excited for it. Uh, from what I could see, just in the trailers, right? And we've talked about it on this channel. I think it looks like it's going to have more Metroidvania elements, which makes me very happy because
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite genres, right? So, um, we had a few areas where we went into the morph ball, right? Like a few of them where we had to navigate through the the ventilation systems, which is pretty typical. But we didn't really have any secret areas that you
No.
would find.
Mm-mm.
And you're also like, I think you only get a certain amount of time with the demo, and I wanted to beat it because I know the ladies said most people don't beat the demo, like they don't beat the boss because the timer code, you know,
Goes
you
off.
only get so many.
Yeah.
They can't let you like die all day, right? Like, so I wanted to beat the demo
Yeah.
and see the end with what do you call it? Did I show the footage where I show the end? I think I did.
It's a cutscene with Silex. Yeah.
Silex, yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting just about that cutscene is that thing behind the Metroid Prime 4 Beyond logo, that sort of circle with the little wavy bit that goes in between. That's like a thing in the game, like a physical item. I don't know. It's some sort of warp drive charge battery sci-fi nonsense. I didn't expect it to be an actual thing, so I saw like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, to the point of the boss, Stash, I don't know how you felt about this. That boss took forever. It was such a long fight. And honestly, I was really disappointed by that because it felt like no attack I was doing like any particular amount of damage. I mean, I think probably half the time I spent in that demo was fighting this boss just because it had so much health and you had so few options. I was just like, man, this is a slog.
Yeah, so the boss fight, again, I was using the mouse controls. I think I tried for a little bit switching to the Joy-Con. And again, because I want to keep testing it out in different scenarios. And again, I like kept gravitating back towards the mouse mode, even when you're doing a boss fight, right? Because it felt more precise because of the way you needed to aim directly.
That was gonna be my next question. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to aim directly at the weak points, right? And so using it in mouse mode was definitely more beneficial. The fight kind of felt like a labor, but I liked it in that sense because it makes it feel like more like a boss fight. Like, hey, like this is going to be tough. Like almost like when you're playing an RPG from like think about Final Fantasy 2 and 3 on the SNES, and you got these boss fights that last like 20, 30, 40 minutes, right? It almost felt like it gave me that kind of vibe, but in a first-person shooter Metroid. I'm like, this is interesting. I wonder if they're gonna like do this with all boss fights, or if this is just part of the demo. I would have liked to switch to missiles, right? And use
you don't
missiles.
have that yet.
Yeah, and it was interesting because one of the things I remember the Nintendo rep telling me was with the D-pad, you could switch to missiles. And I'm like, all right, yeah, cool. So I'm like doing this fight, right? With the boss fight, I'm like, I'm just going to blow this dude away with a missile because I didn't use any of them. And then when I tried to, I couldn't. And I don't know if that was like just they wanted the boss fight to be like, more.
We were playing the opening of the game. You hadn't unlocked missiles yet, or like I'm sure that's how you do use them, but we didn't have access to them. I don't think. I think that's what it was. I think by that point in the game, you're not going to have missiles either. And my frustration with the boss wasn't that it took a long time. I've fought long boss battles before. I love my Souls games. That's not necessarily an issue. This thing had like 2.5 moves. That's really the problem. Is I really didn't feel like it was evolving over the course of the battle. And that's really frustrating for a long boss battle when you feel like you're just going through the motions again and again. It had this thing where it like slams its big arms down and then it sends like a wave of energy at you that you either have to jump over or turn into a ball to duck underneath. And I was like,
that was fun.
I have dodged this attack 20 times already. Do something else, you big lug.
Yeah. This is what I thought too. My takeaway from the boss fight is that
this is the boss fight, by the way. It's about to start.
Is that, this is for everyone to play and get associated, I guess you could say, with the mouse mode and with the controls of Metroid Prime. And, it's supposed to be, I wouldn't say easy, but they want to make sure that everyone can play through this boss fight, right? And so I think they limited maybe the amount of moves like on purpose to make it.
Maybe.
And I'm not saying maybe we have more moves when the game comes out, but like this is obviously they want you to experience a boss fight that is not super difficult as far as the
Yeah.
moves. It doesn't have a ton of moves, but it makes it feel like you accomplished something when you beat the boss.
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, we have a challenger approaching, new guest popping in the show because, of course,
Oh, there's the guy.
Andre.
What's up?
we can't.
Whoa! There he is.
What's up?
He heard me talking shit about
You're
Prime
muted.
4, and he's
Yeah,
like, I
we're
gotta come
talking
beat this guy
Prime.
to death.
Yep.
He had to get in here.
Unless he's intentionally muted.
Andres, you're muted.
Totally muted, Andres. Totally muted.
Classic Andres right there.
Andres right there. Still not working. See, I this was an epic introduction for him, and he screwed up. You done. You done.
Let's try again. Let's start again.
Kick him out and bring him back in.
Yep.
Challenger approaching. Andres
Still muted.
restart. The muted.
Ew.
The muted one. Andres
He's still
restart.
muted. He's still muted. Oh
Damn it, I'm
no.
looking forward to this.
Check, go to the
Lots of
settings.
people who played
This
Metroid.
guy. This guy.
Do you see that chat? Andres needs to restart.
Ooh.
Very good.
That's
Damn.
good. Little does he know, Nate has
Still
him
no.
muted on purpose.
There
we
you
go.
There it
Okay.
is.
There we
No,
go.
I was on the on the wrong microphone. That's why.
Yeah, what did I
Yeah.
say? Check your input.
Yeah.
It is.
All right,
Yeah.
let's try this again. Hey, we got a new challenger approaching. Andres restart because he couldn't miss Metroid Prime 4.
How dare you speak ill of such a glorious boss fight? Are you kidding me? No, I mean it's your opinion. That's fine. But honestly, I think the boss is probably pretty easy. Like you can lock on, you can wipe those little orbs with a missile real quick. So I actually think you can beat it pretty fast. But that requires having a better I feel like speedrunners will blitz this. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's the beginning of the
yeah.
game, and even to think about Metroid Prime Remastered, you guys go play the Switch one. The very first boss,
Parasite Queen, 6
it's a
seconds.
joke.
Let's go.
It's a joke. Yeah, it's a joke.
But the thing is, though, it's only a joke after you kind of learn it, right? Like at first, it is kind of like a sponge of damage because you're not hitting it as efficiently as you would like to.
Sure.
And it's not until you're like, oh, I can spam missiles on it really quick and throw out a lot of damage, right? So
Well, I still wouldn't say that it's difficult. I never felt like the first
you're
one I
not
played-
really meant to. Well, I mean, truth be told, I've seen people die against Parasite Queen when they don't know Prime. I think I even died when I was a little kid once or twice.
Well, okay, as an
Actually,
adult,
you know what? I think I even live streamed once where I was messing around and it killed me. So it can happen.
Oh, well,
This one at least seems to be. I know Tucker, you're saying there wasn't too many mechanics for this, but this at least looks to have more mechanical depth than Parasite Queen.
Sure.
Yeah. This is. I mean, I'm really excited about this boss because I think this is a lot more elaborate than Parasite Queen. I mean, it is kind of difficult in comparison to Parasite Queen because you have to do more. You have to do the dodges with the morph ball. There are times it can grab you. It does force you to aim around. So I don't know. I actually think for a first boss fight, it's pretty good. Now I didn't play it, right? But I've looked at the footage repeatedly and I think it looks pretty awesome. So
Tucker's like, yeah, well, what do you know?
yeah,
It's an oversized delete from Halo. Is all it is.
It does look
Prime
like one. You're right.
it gives me Moginar vibes actually. For any of you who played Prime 3. It's Moginar is like a giant golem that has these orbs you have to aim at and you blast them. And actually on Wii, I played it in hype. You beat normal and veteran, right? But then there's hyper mode, and so in hyper mode you have to press A a million times, and if you screw up, it starts all over again. That is the ultimate way to obtain carpal tunnel. I'm glad now we can use the trigger. Actually, I have a question. So in Prime Remastered, right? They actually made a little subtle change to the game where when you press the arm cannon shot, it does a little bit of a rapid fire, right? To kind of make it easier for you to shoot repeatedly. because in initially every time you press the button, it's just one shot, right? But in Prime Master, it's like 3. In this one, is it a single? I'm not talking about the charge shot, but when you press it just once, does it do like a little bit of like a da-da-da, like a rapid fire shot?
Yeah, I don't remember. Unfortunately, I apologize.
I'm looking at the footage here, and you're just doing charge shots, which
He
are
does
good if you land them.
He does a lot of charge shots.
Yeah.
If you land them, if you're not, it's just like, oh darn.
I don't recall if there was. I don't remember. Be honest with you.
I haven't actually been looking for it. Like it just occurred to me now, like as we're talking about it,
Yeah, I'm going back in the footage just to see if it happens to happen.
Now, I just clicked around through Stash's footage and just to see how long that boss fight was, just to see if I was making it up. 7 minutes out of the 17 minutes of his gameplay are that boss fight. So it is a massive chunk of that opening section.
I mean, I guess in that opening section, yeah, but I feel like that's still not that crazy. I don't know. Maybe I'm perception of.
I think it is the
Prime boss fights.
I just saw Fast Fire and it looked like 3 came out.
Hold on.
Yeah, that's
slow
what
down,
I
analyze.
Analyzing the staff
the frame by frame.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it is right because it looks like it's happening pretty quick, and that's a good thing. Yeah,
I feel bad asking this because I keep asking Rumble questions, but I gotta ask because these scenarios keep popping in my head as I watch this footage. Is there HD Rumble when you're in Morph Ball? Do you feel yourself rolling on the ground?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. It's actually very similar to. It's very similar to what I was saying about Mario Kart, where if you're like touching a wall, you kind of feel the rolling sensation, like be like up on one side of the controller.
Love it.
It's a nice little like. I would say like gritty, like
oh man,
rolling along. Yeah, it's nice.
Keep whispering those sweet nothings, dude. I'm so glad that you brought up Mario Kart because I feel like Mario Kart's actually the best example of HD Rumble on the Switch, which is kind of funny because it's a Wii U game that came out in the second month of the console.
Yeah.
I mean, Mario Odyssey does it well, but it kind of does it in like a gimmicky way. Like in Mario Kart 8, it's just like, hey, you're drifting and you feel the terrain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's kind of funny. I don't know how much you guys have talked about this, right? But like, we're supposedly we have better HD Rumble this time. It's HD Rumble 2.
Yeah,
they kind of glossed over that, like Nintendo. And I'm very curious, like, how much better is it? Does it compare to the haptic feedback on PlayStation 5?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. It's especially in the Pro controller. It's more localized than the Rumble in the Switch 1 Pro controller. And it's just a lot finer. What Stash and I were talking about, the most impressive use of HD Rumble was Drag and Drive, and the sensation
makes sense.
The sensation of dragging it down and feeling the like 6 or 7 little clicks in the controller as you pull it back is a really satisfying sensation. I almost liken it to like a playing card, like flipping in the spokes of a bicycle wheel or something like that. It's like that, like a little bit of a I don't know. I didn't know what I just did, but it feels like that in the controller.
I get it. Yeah. No, I think I'm gonna like Drag and Drive a lot. I don't think they should sell it for a high price. It looks like it looks like an eShop
kill
game.
that game.
But it looks like a good eShop game.
I hope it's $20.
Yeah, $20 seems like a good deal.
I think you'll get enough players because it's online. So like, I think you'll get enough players at 20.
Yeah, I mean.
It's
you know
not
what?
Gonna be
I actually
that much.
Here's the thing. I feel like Drag Drive is a better launch title, like a pack-in, than Welcome Tour.
I agree.
I
agree.
And it's not a launch title. It's probably gonna come out like
that Wii Sports kind of vibe, like a new experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
really interesting, fun, because it's a familiar sport. You know.
Yeah.
Just wait for the Drag and Drive Direct.
So. I know when you guys are playing this, right? Like audio probably wasn't great because it's like a very loud environment. But like when I've been listening to the Treehouse, like it's like an alien space opera. It just sounds amazing. I don't know if you guys picked up on that.
I did.
Yeah.
And like I just it's stuck in my head. Like that's how good it is. And you know, I love the theme that they have from Viros as well, that you can get from the website. I don't know. Like, I only saw or heard you talking poorly on the boss fight, Tucker. So I don't know how you feel about the overall demo. Like, how do you feel about the segment?
Well, my comments can be interpreted positively or negatively based on how you feel about Prime in general. The thing that I said that I think was disappointing to me about this particular demo is that there was no mechanical improvements here that made me feel like, oh, finally, this is Prime 4. This is a massive step forward. The mouse mode was definitely the thing I was most interested by. I'm like, okay,
Right.
this definitely makes it feel a lot more responsive, but this is a very tutorially basic Metroid Prime opening segment where I don't think there was a single thing in here that you couldn't have done in the previous games. And
Yeah.
that can be a positive. If you're like, hey, I love Metroid Prime, I'm just looking for another one that's very similar. But to me, the reason why I will offer that as a detriment, as a negative, is because I think a great thing about Nintendo's design philosophy in the Switch and now Switch 2 era is evolution upon their core design philosophies and taking something like Pokemon or Mario or even now Mario Kart and expanding on it in some way that makes it feel like that next step forward that takes advantage of current gen hardware and a greater learning from design philosophy. And I was a little bit underwhelmed to just feel like this section could have been from one of the other Prime games, and you really wouldn't have been able to feel the difference. That being said, we didn't get to try psychic abilities. We don't know what the exploration is like. Those could certainly be things that change my opinion when I end up playing the final project. But this demo, I don't think was a great sense of what Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is as a 15 years plus in the making sequel. It was,
Sure.
this is a good Prime game on a mouse-enabled console, but not much more than that.
Okay. Like, the way I look at this, and obviously we don't know, right? This is me speculating, but I kind of get the vibes that this segment is very much like the opening segment to Tears of the
It
Kingdom.
literally is, yeah.
Right. So it's like a prologue to the prologue, right? Because Tears of the Kingdom basically has two intros, right? It's that first, like, very cinematic, it's essentially like a controllable like cutscene, which I feel like is some, it's not exactly, but similar. It's basically like a 10-minute thing. And then you're actually thrown into the island where you truly learn the game. And
great point.
From what we've actually seen of Vuros, there are a lot of that's where we learn our psychic abilities, right? That's actually where we've seen the proof of the backdash, right? Which I think is kind of speaking more towards what you were hoping for, some different evolutions, right, of the actual like core Prime gameplay. And none of that's here, right? So I kind of get the sense that this is essentially like a cinematic opening 10-minute cutscene to get you
100%.
excited. It's the exposition for the game, like why we're at where we're at. This is basically, hey, this is classic Metroid Prime. And then the second area, I think, is where we're going to start to see those evolutions, which I think we have some evidence of, right? To what extent, that's where we're kind of going to have to wait and see. And just kind of, this is, I don't even know what you make of this. I just think it's like worth noting. It's very interesting how I think we can kind of look at Prime 4 similar to Tears of the Kingdom, and Samus has a weird hand with powers, as does Link. They both get whacked at the end of these 10-minute hype introductions, and they get thrown to another realm that they do not recognize, and now their hand has extra special powers where they learn a whole bunch of abilities they did not know about before. Just a very interesting similarity.
Sure.
I have one final question about Metroid Prime 4. From what you, Tucker, and you, Stash, experienced. Obviously, this is a Switch 2 edition of a Switch 1 game. So I got to ask about the visuals. I know that there's a 120 frames mode. There's the 4K,
that's what we played.
60 frames mode. Visually, did this feel kind of like a showstopper for Switch 2? Or was there something else that, on the visual side really felt like, wow, Switch 2 looks beautiful?
I gotta say that this is actually not really an insult, but it's very similar to Prime Remastered. And Prime Remastered probably the best looking game on the system in terms of fidelity and lighting engine and stuff like that. And so, and this is, I assume, is made in the exact same engine with almost the exact same team. And so I think that's to be expected. I think the cutscenes actually were the thing I was most impressed by. I mean, they have some really stunning vistas. They're really, really crisp. They run great. And obviously, cutscenes weren't something that's a particularly gigantic focus of Prime Remastered. So that definitely felt like a big step up in terms of a cinematic presence was watching these really high quality pre-rendered cutscenes. But in terms of the game, it looked great. It ran great. This was the 120 FPS mode. I actually really would have wanted to see what it looked like in 4K. Maybe that would have made me feel a little bit more impressed by the technical power of the Switch 2, because obviously frame rate is great, but I think a solid 60 is all I need, frankly. And so 4K I think would have been more appealing to me, but we didn't get the chance to switch it. It's whatever at the end of the day. Game looked great, but there was no particular element of this where I'm like, oh my God, Switch 2 can finally show this. You know, Prime Remastered already impressive, so it's very much on the same level.
Did you feel the same way, Stash? Or
Yeah, so I think that the two takeaways was the sharpness.
Yeah.
The resolution looked very sharp, and the HDR. The HDR looks phenomenal, and again, like when you play it in person, because it's you can't see the HDR watching the video in this format, right?
right off screen?
Yeah, it really benefits to see it in person. It's kind of like I've compared it to trying to, for example, review like a gaming projector. It's really hard for you to understand the scale of 150-inch screen and how sharp it looks in person. And this is the same thing, like seeing is believing. When you see the colors in person, all of the games, like I remember like walking by Kirby in the Forgotten Land, and I'm like, good Lord, like it just pops off screen. Like it like made me stop to look and kind of take it in, like, wow, like those colors just pop visually. So you do see a lot of that in Prime. So those were the two things I noticed that are different a little bit from Prime Remastered. And to what Tucker said as well, like I would have been more interested in playing 4K 60 because I do think 60 is enough. It's great that there's 120, but I'd like to see how it looks in 4K for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, just take this moment. N64 Josh has to dip out. Totally understandable.
It's because I just got here.
The man is sick. He's also sick, so it's okay. He'll be tip top next show.
Absolutely.
Hope you feel better, man.
Feel better, man.
Thanks
Feel
so much.
better,
I'll catch you
brother.
guys later.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into some DK. Donkey Kong, baby.
Oh man. So I thought I was just coming in, for the
No,
boring
we do a lot of hardware talk about all the different like features and the rumble
Sure.
and the sticks and all this. So and our first topic, we had an entirely different first topic. We were talking about the pre-order situation. So
Yeah, I saw a little bit of that. There was some pretty good, insightful things that Jake
that's
talked
why we
about.
wanted to make sure we got them. Because again, we had the pre-order man himself on. Of course, we had to do it.
Yeah.
So let's hit some DK up.
Can I say one more thing about Prime 4? I personally just get the sense that I never got confirmation if I could say anything, so I guess I'll just
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I didn't play it, right, but from everything I've seen, I really kind of get the sense this is probably going to be Nintendo's highest rated game of the year.
Okay.
Maybe.
High praise.
It's I mean, it's a guys, it's tough because if we're talking Nintendo's highest rated games, it's only tough because the competition is going to be insane with Mario Kart and Donkey Kong that we're about to talk about. Like, these games are amazing. So I think all three of them are just going to be absolute freaking
I think
bangers.
all three could be game of the year candidates, to be honest.
They can. They literally, like, I walked away from the event like, holy shit, this is insane. Like, all three of these games, yeah, they're like, to me, they could all three be flagship launch titles or flagship titles, right? And we're getting all of them this year. And yeah, I was blown away. I walked away from Metroid thinking like, I cannot wait to play this. I cannot wait to play this in mouse mode, the whole thing. It's so cool.
So this is the crazy thing. A lot of people walked away really, from the impressions I saw, really impressed with DK. Seems we don't know for sure, but it seems like it's made by the Mario Odyssey team. We know last time they put out a full 3D platforming game, it got a 97. So it seems to be made by a team knows what they're doing. It's gonna be interesting to see because I think that and MP4 could both end up getting nominated for Game of the Year. And the reason, like, I don't know who's gonna win it. And third parties, obviously, Sony games out, so it's gonna be really stiff competition. But we're getting into DK, and I want to first go to Eric.
Yeah,
because you love like Mario kind of games, and this is not Mario, but it's DK. You love DK.
Sure as hell feels like Odyssey. It looks, it looks like Odyssey, I should say.
It's Silver Star.
So, do you have any questions for the guys who played it about this game in particular? Because this is one of the ones that I think since they revealed it, I'm like, oh, this is a game Eric might actually buy.
I'm gonna play it either way.
Yeah, there we go. I was gonna say, I think it already appealed to you enough.
Man, I don't know if I have any questions though. I mean, I'm gonna buy it, so I'm gonna find out what the hell it's gonna be anyway. So,
how do you feel about the game visually? Like in person?
In person, yeah.
Because I don't know, like I think the thing about this game, and I kind of speculate that this game was initially planned as a Switch 1 title, and it's impressive, but I think it's only impressive because 90% of the environment is destructible. If that makes any sense.
Most of the tech is on particle effects and destructibility and interactivity. This is going to be a fascinating game. And to be honest, I know this is not maybe what you want to hear, but I don't know if this is going to end up being a Game of the Year contender from what I played. Not that it won't be good, but this is a very different kind of video game. And here's why I don't think that it necessarily will be in the Game of the Year conversation, even if it is that Mario Odyssey team, which is one of my favorite Nintendo games of all time. I think one of the best games of the last generation. I absolutely adore that game. This game's not designed like anything else. The progression, the movement, the interactivity is a totally new type of 3D platforming game design. And I think that is awesome and really exciting. And for me, exactly why I'm excited for this game. But what it means is that it's also working on riskier ground, right? Mario Odyssey is as great as it is because it has literally 20 years worth of game design to learn from and mistakes and design decisions that were made over the course of many 3D Mario games. And this is the only thing this really has to base its structure upon is, of course, other 3D platformers. But because of the difference in combat and movement, exploration, and interactivity, I don't think you can really pull too much from those. And then I guess kind of Donkey Kong 64, but not really. This is a very different game progression-wise, exploration-wise. Oh, but not. It does pull that. And so I don't know how people are going to feel about this. Stash, I'm curious if you share a similar experience. This was a game that was really hard to get my hands and head around in terms of how you were interacting and progressing with it.
Can I real quick before you jump in, Stash, can I chime in? Because you partially kind of dove in. I have like one specific question about this game, and I'm sure more will arise as we discuss it. But you kind of, I feel like, are in that area, and Stash, when he gives his feedback, could probably answer this for me. I'm really curious about Donkey Kong. I think it looked amazing. I love the animations. I love his redesign.
So good.
But my big curiosity for this game, I've only watched that initial Treehouse video. I didn't watch the second when they revisit and show more. Just that opening area I've seen when they're in the cave and he finds the little rock companion. That's all I've seen so far. So I'm curious. Obviously, this is a game with destructible environments where you can collect different things, but does it seem like there's going to be more depth to it than that? Does it feel like it's going to have like the depth of, while it might not be like a Mario Odyssey, but the depth of that? Is there more under the skin here than just destroy environments and find hidden items?
Yes, and for one particular reason is that we were given access to this Ingot Isle opening area, or at least part of it. It was kind of cut a little bit earlier. We didn't get to the Odd Rock part of it. And then we got to do this lagoon area that's like kind of got the yellowy grass. And the reason I say yes, there's going to be more, and I think it'll only get more interesting as the game progresses, is that what we were given a little bit of access to in the second area was some sort of sub areas, right? Like Sunshine or Odyssey, where you're doing a specific challenge. You have to do a combat or a platforming challenge. And that I think is where the game is going to shine in terms of its variety and its challenges.
Variety was the word that I needed. Yeah, I was just concerned. Like, this looks amazing, but is it just a destructible playground with hidden items?
And that's the thing that I will levy as a mild criticism, I guess, about this as a demo. Is this was a good way for us to get introduced to the basics of what this game is on a control level. How do you destroy things? What is destructible? How do you grab and pick up things? You use this interesting control scheme where jump is on A, and you have B to dig down, Y to dig sideways, and X to dig up. So it's got this kind of unique control scheme. This was very much about getting our heads around that, which was, I think, a little bit difficult to kind of understand because it controls very differently. But as a demo, it was much more about the destructibility, much more about digging around in caves and digging through dirt and picking up dirt. And I don't think the whole game is going to do that. I think this is very much a tutorial for you to get your head around how you can interact with the environment before it introduces a little bit more complexity in actual design and scripted sections. But I think this didn't really give us a sense of what the complexity and scope of the game is going to be, right? We're really just like, what the hell is this? How does it work? Which is what you need a demo for. But I was a little bit underwhelmed by what we were given access to. It did feel a little bit samey, as you were saying you were a little bit worried about, of like, I'm kind of just smashing shit for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I obviously didn't play this, but having played like demos in the past at a lot of demo events, that's a lot of what the demos are. They're very introductory because they're only showing you the beginning of the game, so
right.
you're not really going to get a good grasp for all the variety the game has to offer because again, they're saving that for future marketing and stuff like that. And
Did you guys see the leak?
Yes.
Which one?
Which like
the art thing, yeah.
The
the
evolution of Donkey
of
Kong's
sport.
companion.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert for those.
For those who don't want to know, spoiler alerts for.
I mean, we don't have to say it.
characters
I just think it kind of
Yes.
speaks to the question, though. Like, I think
Yeah,
this game
sure.
is going to kind of evolve and adapt, and like, when we've done like the footage analysis, right? Like, there are villages. There's villages for the ostriches. It looks like Espresso from Donkey Kong Country is coming back.
Cool.
We do see actually Cranky Kong in the other treehouse segment in the lagoon. And he makes reference to Rambi, and it's actual like a Rambi icon, which I think implies that Rambi is going to actually like be interactive to some extent. That doesn't mean it doesn't confirm that he'll be playable, but it at least confirms that he'll be kind of like, so you remember like in the Galaxy games, like they would reference Luigi and you would see the Luigi like icon. It's at least that. But I mean, if you think about what this game is all about, destruction, and what Rambi's all about, destruction, I kind of feel like
kind of goes hand in hand.
So I mean, there's a lot of character focus, reference to different things, a lot of references to your OG Donkey Kong, potentially references to the Kremlins as well. So there's at least a lot of nods they're throwing in this game. And like I mentioned, there's villages and stuff like that. We've seen some variety to the environments, at least in the trailer. So I think there's going to be a decent amount of variance, but I also kind of like just looking at everything that is a concern of mine that like, is this going to get old? Like just destroying stuff.
And I understand like this looks super cathartic and clearing out those huge gold caverns. But yeah, I was curious about variety. And I don't know if you guys, and Stash, I want to give you a chance to give your thoughts on this, but might as well throw this in there for both of you guys. I feel like one area that I feel like this game could really, really shine in, and I'm really excited to learn and see more of. And I don't know if you guys got to experience this in your play session, but I feel like boss fights could be an area where this game is really impressive. I don't know if you guys got to do a boss fight in your time. Like I said, this is pretty much what I've seen of the game is what I'm watching right now. So
I don't think I had a boss fight. If it
wasn't one available. No.
Yeah, it would have been.
Well,
it was a more formidable enemy I had.
Yeah, there's like one area that seems like it could lead to a boss fight, but if you drop down into it, it restarts the demo. It's like, all right, you're done.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, I think that happened to me on the second playthrough.
That was that's probably, I haven't seen all the footage yet, but the treehouse their gameplay was the same way. When they dropped down, it'd be a few seconds and it reset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Steph, what are your thoughts on all this stuff?
Yeah, so I walked away definitely feeling like DK could be something very special. It could be game of the year material. I walked away thinking that I could have spent hours exploring. Like there's an area where I was digging, and like how would you know that there was a golden banana hiding in there? Because there was. And I just kept digging deeper and deeper into the ground until I fell into a secret area and then got a golden banana. And I don't know if it's on this part or if it's on the second playthrough, but even the lady was like, "Oh, I haven't even seen this yet. Like, you're in an area I haven't seen." I'm like, that's what's cool about this, is that like there's secrets
sick.
everywhere. I went outside of the cave and I was climbing the wall, like the outside of the biome, you could say. And you can literally punch into the biome. So you can go on the outside, basically like the crust of the earth, and then punch into it from anywhere on the map. And when you scale out and look at the map, and when you press you press the pause button and you can look at the actual map, which I do in the demo. And you can zoom in and you can see like layers and layers. And you're just like, holy shit, this is massive. How many of these are in the game? This is really crazy. And all I could think is like, and I was telling Michaela too, like, babe, like you can spend so many hours just doing this and exploring, because who's to say there's not a golden banana, somewhere else if you punch into the wall? Because I punched all the way into the ground and found one, and I don't even know why I did this. I just did to kind of explore, and I guess to see like what you can do in the sandbox, right? The thing that I immediately got vibes from, and I talked to the guy here too. I even say to him, I was like, you can tell this is done by the Mario Odyssey team. And he agreed with me. I don't know if he knows anything, but
Probably not.
he probably doesn't, but he agreed. And I'm like, yeah, like this is totally a Mario Odyssey team for sure.
I haven't
The
seen
Silver
any
Star
of-
guys.
Yeah, there's
I
some
haven't seen any.
elements in here that match up with like the way Mario Odyssey was designed. Certain
Yes.
very specific things.
Yeah. You can
Nate, do
see
you remember
here when I
last
do the
year-
map stuff.
Oh, interesting. See, I haven't seen any of this part. I've only seen that first area from when they first did the. I've been so busy when they first did the treehouse and they showed that initial playthrough. But this will all be new footage
And
for me.
you can see it better, of course, like when you're in person and you can actually like see the HDR. But do you see how there's like something under the water there? Like,
yeah,
You can
and
go
it's
there.
hard to see like on the screen, but I'm like, what's that? And they're like, oh, that's not something you can do right now. We're not sure if there's anything you can do there. I'm like, but you see that, right? Like I was making sure. I'm like, I'm not crazy, right? You see there's something there.
It's like the water's darker.
Yeah. And as I'm just scrolling through
If it's
here,
even water.
as you guys can see, I'm just like moving this map around. I'm just like, dude, there's so many like different areas and crevices that you can find to like put a pin on your map, which you can do. And I did, to find golden bananas. And to me, this is 100%. And I said this in my impressions, that this is 100% a evolution in a sense of collecting the power moons, collecting the golden jiggies from Banjo-Kazooie. This is like all of that kind of put together. And it's in this like huge sandbox. I don't know if you'd call it a world, but like a biome, because it's not open world, but it feels like these biomes are freaking massive, as you saw. And
I
the
think
fact that
sandbox
you
would
can go
apply.
anywhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you can go anywhere. You can dig anywhere. Everything is searchable. Like there's going to be, we all know, like from playing Donkey Kong Country, right? That there's just secrets everywhere. If you explore, you're rewarded. Like the players who explore in Donkey Kong Country are the ones who get the most out of the game. And like here, like I'm just digging into the ground. Like, look at this. I just keep going. and going. And I even looked at Michaela, like, what the heck? And then look, then I find this area, and it's like, oh, how would I have known this existed?
Yeah,
Unless I
that's
dug
big.
all the way
Cool.
into the ground, like what? You know what I mean?
Just
Like
found
this,
another area. It's crazy.
yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
And then it gave me like kind of Tears of the Kingdom vibes with the
Mhm.
underground area. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what is going on here? And then you see, that's where I find the banana. I'm like, how would I have known to have done this unless I just stumbled upon it because I'm exploring? And that's why it's like for people who like to do this kind of stuff, like when they play games, like explore, like when you play Zelda, do you like to explore? And here's me like on the outside, and I die one of these times, but it didn't stop me because after I died, I went and did it again because I'm like, I want to see what you can do. And even the Nintendo guys, like, yeah, I get it. Like, you got to figure out what the boundaries are. I'm like, exactly. I mean, that's part of it's part of playing in a
Did you see how
demo,
the
is trying
coins
to
just
break it.
dropped there when you
Yeah,
died?
yeah.
That's exactly how it worked in Odyssey, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did are there surfaces that DK is unable to climb, or is there a
Yes.
limit to how long you could hold on to an edge or climb for?
No limit, no stamina.
He ain't
No,
Link.
yeah, no stamina. There are
I-
things that are like too slippery. He can't grab onto them.
Sure.
If you see on the map or on the side, there's like stone, and then there's like metal sheets or something that's kind of making up the base of the world. Can't grab onto that. It's too slippery.
Got it.
Whatever. What's interesting is that the climbing in the world that we played in wasn't. I didn't find it like I was using it too much for like curated gameplay. It was more like I just want to kind of mess around and see where I can climb and see what I can do. There weren't really any puzzles that used climbing, but of course, I'm sure that will be different in the final game and in a wider variety of puzzles.
And he climbs quickly, right? Like he's not like Link where it's like a slog. Like no, he just runs on everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
This looks sick.
Yeah.
I do like that they make him kind of seem like, at least from this footage, like this unstoppable force. I think is a really cool way to portray DK.
Oh yeah, love it.
Yeah, it seems like it seems like they kind of give you in this game. It's like the opposite of the Metroid type idea, where I'm sure there will be more power ups, so they give him more abilities and whatnot. But it seems like you feel almost invincible in a way, and you just kind of go at it. You just figure it all out. The world is your oyster at that point.
So I got a theory on that actually. I actually suspect that Donkey Kong's powers may pretty much stay about the same. I mean, we pretty much know that his ally is going to adapt in some ways, so that might lead to some gameplay changes. But like the Mario games and also like the Donkey Kong games, where the gameplay varies is the environment, right? And partners. In Mario games, it's transformations, but in Donkey Kong, it's partners. I mentioned Rambi earlier. Something interesting that we actually see in this level, when he gets down to, there's like a puzzle in one of the water areas. He needs to like raise one of the golden bananas, which implies he can't dive down there, right? He has to use like a mechanism to raise it up. And so basically that tells us that Donkey Kong cannot dive in this game on his own. So that leads me to leave. Oh, could we also perhaps use On Guard, which is a swordfish, for diving levels as well, right? So I think like the stage is set for Donkey Kong to have partners, and that's how maybe we'll see like some different styles of gameplay outside of just weird environments that are like those side things that we kind of talked about earlier.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't mean to interrupt, but I need to head out. I appreciate this as well as ways.
Yeah,
this is the game looks fantastic. There's a great footage that you got.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks everybody for having me on. I got a video talking about the tariffs, and I'm gonna have a video about the missing slap sound for whatever reason in the near future. Yeah. So thanks for having me on. I'll talk to you guys later. And
you guys can go
as
check out
always.
his channel. Link down in the description.
See ya.
Good to see you, man.
Nice.
Good to see
Cheers,
you guys.
man.
Talk to
Yeah. All right.
See ya.
Man,
This is my second playthrough,
yeah, I can see that. Oh my god.
and I got lectured on it.
You got lectured? What do you mean?
by the Nintendo rep. She's like, because she came over, and Michaela was of course recording, and she was like trying not to laugh but laughing, and she's like, we know that this is your second time playing because we remember you. We remember exactly like what you look like and your
Yeah, of course.
jacket. I'm
Oh
like,
wow.
and I was like, yeah. I'm like, this is my second time playing.
So
And
what?
she's like, how are you? She's like, how are you still here? This is the last game you're supposed to play, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
everyone leaves out the exit. I'm like, yeah, I know. I was like, they told us earlier that we had to stop playing and come play Donkey Kong at 2:00, and they never said that after we played DK that we couldn't go back out and play more. I said, so and this is what Michaela said. Dude, like Michaela just pulls this out of her hat. And I'm like,
This is how
what
the
is-
5 hours happened. Here we go.
yeah, I'm like, what is she doing? I'm like, this is great. Like, she's bullshit. She's bullshitting like I bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, she never used to do this stuff. And yeah, she
That's
totally
awesome.
bullshitted them. And to my knowledge, I mean, I don't think this happened unless I was like blacked out playing, which I guess that could have happened too.
Possible. Yeah.
Drunk
Yeah.
on Donkey Kong.
Yeah, but that's how we got to go back out, and we talked to the head guy, and he was really cool, and he really liked my mustache as well, and he had made a
Who can
comment
say no to
earlier.
you?
Dude, it was so funny. He's like, he pulled someone to the side and was on his radio, and he explained it to him. We're gonna let them go back out. It's fine. Let them go back out. Let them play some more games, and it'll all be fine. That's what the head guy said to the other guy, and like, okay, yeah, cool. I'm like, oh my god, yes! Like I was just so happy. Like, yes, we're gonna go play more games. This is great. 'Cause, like that was the whole point of the trip, right? Like it ain't cheap to fly out
No shit.
on less than a week's notice to get flights and a hotel. So I was like, this is great, man. I'm so happy.
Shout out to the old wifey Michaela coming up with the bullshit excuses to get the head guy involved to be like, just let him play. It's fine.
Yeah, I can't believe it worked too. Like, damn. Like, that is awesome. So yeah, we got to play twice, and she the lady, I had to explain it to her. And I'm like, she's like, what guy? And I'm like, I don't know who he is right now. I mean, this isn't my shift. I'm not managing it. Like, I don't know where he's at, but
I just keep a tracker on him.
I could point him out in a lineup, and like we were just kind of going back and forth about it. And I was like, I don't have to play. I was like, I'm just trying to get, I'm trying to get the best footage as possible so we can present this game right to the community as best as possible on my YouTube channel and on our podcast. She's like, oh, you have a YouTube channel? And I was telling her, and she after that, like, she stopped hassling me and she just started talking to me about the game, and like you can see her reflection in the screen. Actually,
Yeah, I've
she's
been
like,
watching that while you were talking.
Yeah.
They're like trying to figure out what do we do.
Yeah, I could feel her hovering, and it's like, hey, like I don't care, you know what I mean? Like I'm on bonus time, like ×2 right now because I'm playing the game twice, and honestly, it's like I can tell that the demo is not going to let me do all the things that like I want to try out, because earlier I went to a different area, and it says that, right, Tucker? It says like area something, like some numbers when you go like deep into, like I found a couple different areas that you're not supposed to find.
Yeah, the sub areas have like little
I found that too.
names, yeah.
And there's gameplay footage of that. I'll tell you what those levels remind me of. They remind me of the platforming levels in Super Mario Sunshine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
which I loved.
That's
by
a
the way.
positive.
Yeah,
that is
totally.
a huge positive.
But overall, this game reminds me again of like, as far as what you do, you're collecting these golden bananas. We know there's more collectibles. The golden bananas remind me of the shines and the power moons. But then there's all these other collectibles. And the guy that I talked to, the first rep, was telling me that there's tons of different collectibles that we haven't seen in the demo.
Yeah.
That you're going to be able to use to get other things in the game. And like he wouldn't go into like any more detail, and I'm not going to press him, and at the same time I'm like trying to play the game.
You're all threatening him.
But there's so much more to this.
That's how it goes at these events. You have the reps that actually work at Nintendo, than the ones that were hired just for the event, and they're all intermixed in. So.
Like Jose, like Jose's wearing the same shirt as everybody else, but I know Jose's not a event member. Like he's a Nintendo employee.
Yeah, that's how Nintendo does it. Even at E3 and stuff, it's a mix of the real employees and then the hired just for the event. And the more you hover around Nintendo's booth and the more you play the games, the more you start to realize, okay, this is someone who actually works at Nintendo.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, he's probably played like other levels that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, you could even be a QA tester for him,
Right.
Yeah, it was like when I saw Radek from CD Projekt Red,
really
I'd
cool.
immediately told Michaela, I was like, he's got a Nintendo Switch 2 shirt on, but he doesn't work for Nintendo. He works for CDPR. And I know, like, my best friend's Polish. He looks Polish. That's where CDPR is. Like, I know that guy works for them. And he had a Cyberpunk jacket on. So like you can pick people out and know like who they are just by kind of observing. Here you can kind of see how the colors are with the HDR a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty.
But in person, guys, oh my God.
Yeah.
Blows you away.
Were they, did they have you guys on like OLED TVs and stuff like best of the best, the percent of the best?
No, actually it wasn't. It wasn't on. These weren't OLED TVs.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, they weren't OLED.
I mean, they have to be ones that are HDR, obviously.
I was going to say, I'd hope to God that, they set us up with HDR TVs and HDMI 2.1. And, obviously they did because the colors are just insane when you see it in person.
Well, also because Switch 2 requires the next generation HDMI. The Switch 1.
You have to for 120 hertz.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it would need to be using that.
Which is why it was such a big deal about this dock. Remember, with my emails with BenQ, because this is HDMI 2.1 confirming 120 hertz.
Yeah,
which we talked about months ago.
Yeah, which is hilarious because at the time we're like, oh, they're not going to do 120.
No one believed it.
I believed it.
The rumor hits right before the direct, and you're like, oh,
no one believed it.
It's probably still bullshit. Then the direct comes in, like, dude, we were watching it, like, as soon as they said supporting up to 120 FPS, I'm like, no, they fucking did it.
Right.
No.
But I think the only game that uses it is Metroid so far.
That's the only one they had a demo for. Yeah, we don't know if there's any of these other games have a mode for it or not.
It was funny because I was doing a live stream like a couple days before the direct, and I brought it up, and I was kind of shut down. I was kind of joking, but I was like, maybe. I was like, well, what if Smash Brothers is like 120 FPS? And pre-direct, it seemed like a kind of like a silly hopium idea. Now, I don't think so. Now it might be like a really good prediction.
The lady in the background still looks pissed.
Nate, if you rewind it like 20 seconds, I want to show you guys that's where it says I went to a different sublayer and look what the game does. Okay, this is how I knew that, like, all right, I'm going out of bounds here, right? Like, they're not going to let me see what I just found. So you'll see here, I do something where it drains all the water, and now I can go down there, and I enter a new sublayer, and it says it.
Yeah.
They said that they showed this in the treehouse too, and
they cut out right. It cuts out like right.
It cuts out right there. Yeah, it's like the exact same.
He's got a very serious face.
I know. I could feel the heat radiating.
I totally picture. All right, it's time for you to leave, sir. And you're, I think I'll stay.
yeah.
Like, what do we do?
These are not the droids you're looking for.
He won't get off. People are supposed to just listen when we tell them. I don't.
The stash is too powerful.
Right.
The thing is, it's like, okay, well, if we can't convince him, we convince the wife. No, the wife's just coming up with excuses. Right. What do we do? Neither one of them will listen.
Yeah. I gotta say though, like, there's a lot to these worlds, guys. Like, they are really quite massive. So I can't wait to see.
And the thing that I was pointing out earlier that I think is going to be very exciting about this game is that in terms of the way you are progressing through the world and understanding like what to look for in the environment in order to find all the secrets, is totally different from these other games that we've played. I mean, we've all played enough platformers, enough 3D collectathon games to where you understand, okay, there's a slope, there's something kind of sparkly over there. What am I going to go for? But this game, in that you can destroy anything and can pick up rocks and throw them at things and stuff. This is a way of moving through and progressing through the environment that is going to be, you're going to have to kind of retrain your brain to think about it in a 3D space that's more like you can just get to anything if you like, literally like drill through the environment if you want to, rather than like having to find a way around it. You can just go straight through. And so that's going to be, I think, as I said, I was kind of hard to get my head around the game a little bit at first, because it is designed in a different way. And I think that might be something that doesn't quite click with people and might make it something that people are a little bit more divided on. And I just want to sort of set that tenor as a little bit of a possibility scenario. Like, this is not necessarily the next super polished 3D Mario game. This is something a little bit more experimental, which I think is really exciting, especially from a team, presumably from the 3D Mario team, that has such a great track record. I have full confidence in being an excellent game. But if it's not that that exact same sort of flow that we've been so used to in other 3D Mario games, that's going to be something that is a take it or leave it kind of thing, and it might not appeal to everyone. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but it's something I've been thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I can say with like 95% certainty that this has at least some part of the 3D Mario team involved.
Yeah, of course.
But I wouldn't be surprised if it's not like the entire Mario Odyssey team and maybe just like a piece of them. Maybe they formed like a new team. Because I just have a hard time believing that they're not also working on Mario.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I keep seeing that lady's glare on the TV every time it goes to black. Like,
dude, it would have been so great if I was there, because I have a Nintendo Switch 2 shirt and I could have walked around holding
pretending.
this, pretending that I worked there.
Oh my God.
Doing things.
You could have stayed the whole time.
Yeah, right? It'd be like, wait, what are you doing? Someone had a problem with this. I'm just resetting the game.
So
we gotta organize that for Switch 3, guys. If they do an event like this, we gotta get Switch 3 shirts, show up with 3D models of it.
Yeah. All I wanted to say, by the way, is just I'm not sure this is an all hands on deck kind of thing, as you know, as it would have been for Mario Odyssey.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't think this is like and look, we all believe obviously that 3D Mario is in development and going to probably be shown at some point here. It probably, maybe it's not coming out this year. It could be next year. But like, 40th anniversary coming up, a lot of thoughts of, hey, we could see it in September Direct or something like that. So yeah, the teams, this isn't the only game, in 8 years that team's been
right.
working.
I think they've been working on 2 games in the last 8 years.
Yeah. And this could have been
been ready for a while. So
yeah. And I mean, this could have been something that, hey, this is why there was no Odyssey 2. Part of the team went on to start working on this. And then at one point they're like, yeah, we should shift this over to Switch 2. We got Mario Wonder coming out. We can maybe hold on this for a bit. And then they made that decision to help flesh out the year one lineup. And I think that, probably a good decision, obviously. Could you guys tell if this game, I know it's really hard to tell, especially at these events, but did it look like it was running in 4K, or did it seem more like 1440?
Not something I can particularly answer.
It's really hard to tell at these events.
Yeah, I thought it was running in 4K.
Yeah.
The fact that they didn't advertise it, though, has me suspecting it's not.
Yeah, it's interesting because like they talked about 4K, but then not really anything was really shown in 4K. The only thing specifically mentioned was Metroid Prime 4.
How
4K 60. But
to defend Stash's point that he thinks it's in 4K, they did make mention that Mario Party and Kirby are at 1440p, if I'm not mistaken. At least Kirby. And so it may be the case that the reason why they mentioned like resolution and things like that is that because these are Switch 2 editions and they want to point out how they are different on the new console. With Donkey Kong and Mario Kart, there is no comparison. Yeah. So there's not as much need to say those things. And so maybe it is 4K. And they just didn't. There's no reason to say it at this point.
Yeah, and I know that Digital Foundry said that we did some pixel counting. It's 1440. Well, it's all compressed video. They didn't actually go hands on, so they don't have direct feed footage. They're using compressed footage.
They've also been wrong a lot. So
they've also been wrong a lot about a lot of things regarding Nintendo in the past. I do trust them once they get their hands on. Yeah, their pixel count to be accurate and everything. It's also important to remember that if it is 4K using DLSS or something, that's even harder to pixel peep in this situation. So it's one of those things where we'll obviously see once the game's out, or maybe they even drop this as a demo on the eShop or something. Who really knows? I would be sick.
it also might not even be a final build. So,
well, yeah, that too. That's always a thing too. Like, and that might be a good transition to like a third party stuff because as Stash said with like the like Cyberpunk and stuff like that. 7 weeks. We that story already broke out there. The 7 week thing. There's a 7-week build. That's obviously not the final product you're going to get on launch day. And even then, hearing 7 weeks, okay, they're talking 40 FPS, 1080p, all this stuff. They're probably still going to keep optimizing it after it comes out.
Sure.
And that's the third party because what's crazy about the 7-week thing is CD Projekt Red didn't get a Switch 2 till 7 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
And it's a launch game.
And it's a launch game, which also tells you how easy this system is to develop for.
Totally.
Which is why everything's coming there.
7 weeks.
And
it already runs at 40 FPS. Like, what?
Yeah, that's really impressive. They were able to pump that out so quickly.
Yeah, and I heard the exact same thing, actually. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but about the Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, is that game started actual development 7 weeks prior to the build that we were playing, which I was really impressed by. And that you mentioning how easy it is to develop for Ryuga Gotoku Studios they're smiling so wide at that news that they can get a really solid version of Yakuza 0 with extra content and English voiceover and stuff running on Switch 2 that quickly. They're going to be pumping out Yakuza games on Switch 2 like it's nobody's business, man. They've got like 15 of these games to work through, and so we're gonna be getting them like in every direct. I cannot wait for that.
And Limited Run's probably gonna handle the physical because they have the license for it. So everyone's gonna make money.
I want to go ahead, man. Oh, since we're talking about Yakuza, it's Andres like I've never seen him before.
Oh
baby.
God.
Everyone zoom in.
I had like a pimple
How do you
there.
do that?
I was like, oh my God.
How do you do that?
How do you do that? How do you win?
But what I was gonna say was I'm a huge Yakuza fan. It's one of my favorite non-Nintendo series, and to me, Yakuza 0 is the cream of the crop from just a story perspective. It's just such a good game. I think they get a lot of them are great. They kind of go a little downhill until we get to the new entries that have done really well. Yeah. Also, but I got to know because I've heard mixed things about Yakuza 0 Director's Cut and how it looks and runs on Switch 2. Obviously, there's a lot of negative discourse going around over the last week regarding Switch 2. So I got to ask, you had hands-on experience with Yakuza, correct? I don't know if you played the PS4 version of 0 or not, but I'm curious how it looked, how it ran. I'm excited. There's new content. And
okay, number one, how do you do this? It's driving me crazy. How do you make it zoom?
I just have a normal camera with a zoom.
Andres, how do I do it?
Okay, go ahead.
So for me, right, I have a camera that has like its own like app, and so with the app I can do stuff.
All right.
I don't know how.
Can I talk about Yakuza, or are we gonna keep showing people's nose holes?
Yeah, let's talk about Yakuza.
So here's an interesting thing about my experience with Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. I just beat Yakuza 0 2 weeks ago for the first time.
My God!
And I immediately went from. I'm trying to talk about a game that you like. Quit pitching your nipples.
Well, you gotta learn to ignore Game Bird. He's the villain of the show.
I'm sorry. I need to take this more seriously.
This particular thing, if you want to care about Yakuza, I need to be able to
I do. Sorry.
but as I was mentioning, I'm a brand new Yakuza fan. I played Like a Dragon 7 last December, immediately jumped into 0, beat 0 just a couple weeks ago, immediately went into Kiwami, beat Kiwami last week, immediately jumped into Kiwami 2. And so I am immersed in Yakuza right now.
Hell yeah.
And I want to talk to you about that more later on, maybe off the show, just because I need someone else to talk about these goddamn games with. But the crazy thing to me about Yakuza 0 Director's Cut is I don't agree with everyone saying that it looks particularly any different from the PS4 version.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it looks any better than the PS4 version, which I think is maybe what people are a little bit disappointed by, is that it's not a Kiwami. It's not built as from the ground up remaster. Right. And so I don't think people should be expecting a overhaul or
and they didn't even do that with all the remasters. They only did a couple of the Kiwamis, and then they were just doing ports for the rest of them. So
exactly. Nate's got something to say?
Yeah. So something that's really sticking with me, despite all the goofing off, is we also knew about CD Projekt Red having 7 weeks. You're saying the Yakuza team, they only had 7 weeks to get their build ready. That's what you heard. It's kind of sounding like all these big AAA third parties that are kind of right here at launch really only had 2 months to even get ready for this event, let alone to actually get their game to run. And they all obviously got to run pretty easy. I think one thing to note, if this is like a common occurrence, especially here at launch, I'm not saying there's not anyone who didn't have it longer and has a game coming later. Like, obviously, I'm presuming From Software has probably had a for a while. The games are coming for 2026, right? So there's going to be those games that aren't even announced right now. That obviously, like EA is an example. They obviously have a dev kit. They announced 2 games, but didn't show them, right? Obviously, they're not going to show them because they're going to be the new versions that they announced this summer. But I look at this and look at everything going on. For all the comparisons people are making right now of the games we do have, the Hogwarts Legacy, I wouldn't be surprised if someone confirms that they've only had 7 weeks to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
These are what the games are looking like on Switch 2 without having the actual time to properly develop for the platform.
100%. And also, these are ports. These aren't games developed from the ground up for this system.
These aren't
which I think is also why Duskbloods is like the most impressive of all these. Is presumably, and well, I mean, obviously, that game is designed from the ground up for this hardware, and I think you're probably right that they've had a longer period of time to understand that system. And so, I think third-party games are only going to get better for the next, year or two in terms of being able to take advantage of the hardware. And for all these versions, the only of third-party games on Switch 2, the only one that I thought looked not very good was Split Fiction. I was not impressed by how that game looked.
I also wonder if they literally only had 7 weeks.
I think they did. And that's a really complicated game, technically. So I understand why it's a little bit chunky. But I think it might be better.
Optimization. Yeah, there could be a lot more optimization between now and play it.
So I'm not. You guys seen those? Sorry.
Okay.
I was gonna say, have you guys seen that Final Fantasy VII remake comparison? It just shows Cloud, but they don't show what console it's on, and people can't tell the difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
It's awesome.
Those make me happy.
It is the ultimate diminishing returns situation.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. And the funny thing is, for like the console warriors out there that are like trying to be like, oh, it looks so much better on PlayStation or whatever. Here's the thing. This entire PlayStation 5 generation, almost every single third-party game also went to PS4.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that it doesn't look better on PS5 and PS5 Pro. But what it is to say is the reason they could do that is because even the developers feel like there's a little bit of diminishing returns going from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5. And I can just say this from experience. I've talked to a handful of AAA developers. They think this has been one of the worst generations ever because all they did was bump up the power when the developers weren't asking for more power. It like came at a time when they didn't feel limited by the power of the platform, which actually helps Switch 2 because the developers are still literally developing a PS4 in mind because they didn't really feel like they needed more power. What they needed is different They needed more from the people running their companies, like allowing them to flesh out their ideas properly, giving them the time to do the things they want to do, get rid of some of the they wanted it to be like Nintendo, where they say, hey, take as much time as you need to make the game you're trying to make. They don't always get that in the AAA industry. So I'm not saying, by the way, this generation is pointless and there's not absolutely gorgeous games, and first party always takes best advantage. Always. That's just the way it is. I mean, look at some of the PS5 now exclusives coming out of Sony. They look absolutely stunning and amazing. That's what first party does. They know the hardware best. And I'm not saying that there's not new things you can't do with this power, but I throw this out there, setting aside the fact that the controller for the DualSense feels amazing, right? From a pure gameplay perspective, has there really been any evolution from last gen to this gen? Kind of just feels like we're playing the same games.
Donkey Kong.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, that's the diminishing return. They already looked really, really good on PS4, and the gameplay innovation, like there's nothing happening.
I got another one.
Power, you know?
Metroid Prime 4 with the mouse controls.
Sure, but
evolution.
But
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about, like, you're not talking about Switch 2. I'm just being a little shit.
Well, the reason I'm throwing that out there is just because, like, this is why I think all these graphic comparisons we're making, well, they don't really matter. The only thing you should take away from this is, yeah, it looks good enough. Most consumers aren't going to even know the difference unless you literally put it side by side on the same TVs, and then maybe they'll notice something here or there, a little lighting difference, but it looks so close that no one's really going to care. The biggest difference, obviously, right now, will be the frame rate. To me, I think that's the biggest thing, is like a lot of games that might be running at 30 or 40 on Switch 2 might be 60 on PS5. But we're talking right now when the developers haven't had time to really build the game for the system. So, like, when we get a brand new third-party game next year, just set aside Dust Bloods, that's obviously they're making that exclusive. But like, look, I'm trying to think, like, okay, now Hogwarts Legacy, but maybe the next Harry Potter game that comes out after how successful that one is, they will have so much more time to optimize and properly have that build ready for Switch 2. What if it does come out running at 60 FPS? What if it is hitting 1440p? Because now they've actually had time to spend with it. Like the Hogwarts Legacy thing, because some people have been using that as like the comparison. Oh, it's not really, look how much worse it is. One, in the developer interviews, and you guys might have played it, so you can have more to say on what it looks like. But the developer interviews literally said we ported the Switch 1 version, and then we just tried adding to that, which is probably, you know, when you see like Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, that's the PS5 version they ported over. And that's why it looks so damn good. If they would have taught Hogwarts Legacy and chose to start over again and say, let's try porting the PS5 version, I bet you it would have looked way better on Switch 2. But because they already had the Switch 1 version, that's where they chose to start. So I feel like when we're making all these graphics comparisons, because it's one of the biggest things happening right now since reveal, lots of people comparing graphics, Digital Foundry's doing it. I think we just have to remember that I don't think you can determine anything about the power of the platform right now. And I think this has been true of every generation. How many times have we seen games get better on systems the further we're in as they learn it? So this
every gen.
Like, oh, Cyberpunk's only running at 10, did it in 7 weeks. Shut up.
Like, I like how Digital Foundry's been lowballing Switch 2 to PS4 level, but they've done the caveat of it might be a little better.
Yeah, because they don't know.
But Prime's right. It really doesn't matter. There was one thing going into this next generation that I personally feel that mattered. Switch 2 doesn't need to be as powerful as PS5. It doesn't need to be as powerful as Xbox Series X. What it needs to be is good enough to run third-party games without a packaged topology, without like that Vaseline look. It needs to be.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
And it needs to be good enough to where third parties can release their games multi-platform day and date on the console. That's something that wasn't possible on Switch 1, and it's something that looks like it's definitely going to be possible on Switch 2, and that's all that matters. Last week when we had Paul Gale, he was talking about Street Fighter. He mentioned that he couldn't really tell a difference between the two without seeing them side by side, his impression there. And I was saying, like, that's a really great sign. If you need to see a side-by-side comparison of a third-party game to know how big the difference is or which version looks worse, then Nintendo nailed it with this hardware. Because unless you look at it without having seen the other game and you're just like, oh, this is way worse. If you're like, is this worse? Like, I can't really tell. The textures might not be as good, but I can't really tell. I need to look at a side by side. Nintendo nailed it. That's all you need. You need, like I said, you don't want the packaged apology. You don't want we're bringing it to this console, but it's going to be a year later. It's running at 15 frames per second, and it looks like there's Vaseline on the screen. That's all they needed to avoid. It just needs to look good enough, run well, and be able to be day and date. And I think they're going to do it.
So, getting to your guys' hands-on experience, obviously, I know ThunderStash played like pretty much all the third-party games. When you're there for 5 hours, you're gonna do things. Even if that one lady really didn't want you to be there,
I didn't care.
The big man said, just keep playing, you're fine. You could play through 2.5 full sessions. People maybe didn't show up to the session that was. Anyways, and I know Tucker, didn't play quite as many. But what was there any sort of third-party game that like stood out to you just in terms of like, man, because like on Switch we had like those wow moments of, hey, this is unbelievable, this is here, the Dooms, like oh my god, this impossible sort of port, which we're not going to know impossible port status right now, but it's more so like, is there anything that really, because all the games they showed off we basically know, right? They're old games getting ported over, or it's something brand new like Hades 2, which everyone's excited for. But we know what Hades is, and it is really cool that it's like console exclusive for a little bit on, we don't know how long, but for a little bit on Switch too. Good on, I guess, Nintendo for trying to like boost their platform indie wise by having a console exclusive, or timed console exclusive, to be clear. So was there anything that really like stood out to you guys from any of these that you were like, man, this just feels great to actually play this on this platform?
As someone who's very platform agnostic in the larger sense, the third-party ports on Switch 2 are one element that I think is very exciting for the larger community, for the success of the system, for helping to build connections between Nintendo and these teams that have been, they've been touch and go during the Switch generation, especially someone like EA. Like, none of the major games have been on Switch. Jesus Christ. But I'm not interested in them, frankly, and that's why I didn't really play them when I was at the hands-on event. It's like, I played Cyberpunk. I played Civ 7 on PC.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited that they're present. But when I am given limited time access, I want to play the new shit, frankly. And if a third-party game, it's not necessarily about if it's developed by Nintendo or not, though I'm very interested in seeing what Nintendo does for the system. But if there had been a Travis Strikes Again or an Octopath style or Monkey Ball Banana Rumble style third-party exclusive new game, I would have gone and tried that. But everything else was ports, and that's fine and that's good. I'm glad they had that and did a big focus on that in the direct. But I just beat Split Fiction, as I mentioned. I just beat Yakuza 0. That's more on me than anything. I played Cyberpunk. I've played Civ. I'm going to play Hades on my PC. And so it was not a focus for me to go and explore that. Though with something like the Duskbloods, that's what as I said, that's my most anticipated game out of this whole lineup from a third party. So I'm interested to see over the course of the generation and hopefully maybe into next year as third-party games are starting to align more closely with Nintendo, and maybe we get some more third-party exclusives like Duskbloods. But from me and the event, Yakuza was the only one I did any hands-on for, and primarily because I thought it was interesting they had it locked away, separated in a mature content section. Oh no! It had Yakuza 0.
That makes sense, though.
It had Yakuza 0 and Cyberpunk. Those were the two games that were kind of silent, and it was funny. You go behind the special wall, you access of the mature section. I stand there to play some Yakuza 0, and he's like, look, I know this is a mature section, but don't go in the strip clubs, man. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I don't have to do that. But I just thought it was so dumb that I'm here
funny.
in the mature section and they're like, don't go
He
in
said
there.
that?
I'm like, yeah, he's like,
I
he's
would have
like,
played the game if
I
I
would've-
knew that, so I could go.
I would have went straight into it. I would have went straight into it.
I totally would have. That's so funny.
I love to know
I
when
don't
reps,
know what this is.
You're all
What
whoop.
is this?
when reps tell me not to do things, I'm gonna do it. I talked about that
Yeah.
story with
Yeah.
reps a while.
It's fine.
The reps tell me don't go over there. You're gonna die. I'm like, well, I'm fucking going over there then. Tell me what to do.
It just seems more like a suggestion than a
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Like
Exactly.
then you get mad at me for going over there. Like, no, I'm gonna do it. Like
It's
is it-
the big red button.
literally the only question I have is, am I getting kicked off the demo if I do it? No. Okay, then I'm doing it. Like, don't tell me what to do, man. I'm gonna play the game.
I do have a question for you guys, because I haven't noticed this yet, and maybe I just missed it. But were there any third-party games that used the mouse controls?
Civ? Yeah.
Well,
that might
Civ
have
is an
been it.
obvious one. I was just kind of thinking like maybe like Cyberpunk, for example. Like it's a first.
Nah,
person
almost
game,
everything was
wouldn't
pro
be-
controller at like every single
Yeah.
station. Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I was
maybe
thinking like
to try.
if we
Yeah.
do get to a point where games are day and date, like obviously they're not going to run and look as good as a PS5 version, right? But if they look close, right,
And
and then
the
they
mouse-
also have mouse controls,
Yeah.
and then also you have the whole portability factor, then it's
Right.
not necessarily like an objectively worse version. It's just a different version,
Right.
and that to me is a
Yeah.
very interesting situation.
What'll be
Yeah.
very interesting to see is how much of these games that are also available on PC, which is basically every third party game, incorporate mouse controls. Because, yeah, okay, Civ, yeah, we get that. But like, my brother played Split Fiction on PC, and that game, you can aim, like, there's some shooting
Yeah,
segments where you can
sure.
aim with a mouse. Is Split Fiction on Switch 2 going to have mouse controls? Do they even really care to implement it? It's going to be really
I-
fascinating to see.
I
No,
wouldn't be
but-
surprised to see those patched in at a later time. Listen, if
Maybe.
we're finding
Okay.
out that Cyberpunk is 7 weeks into development for the Switch
Yeah, yeah.
2, like it's only been 7 weeks, that's something that like, yeah, we haven't gotten around to mouse controls, but like
But
Cyberpunk
they
might
confirm mouse controls for
definitely
that
support
game-
it at one point.
I might buy it day one.
See, I also feel like because of the mouse, and this is stuff that I'm going to pay attention with third parties, we might start getting more like PC ports.
Sure.
Like the PC versions of the games get ported because they already have that mouse support built
Interesting.
in.
Aren't
And
PC
they-
ports like in theory more scalable?
We need
In theory.
Diablo so badly.
We'll get it.
ARPGs will rock on Switch 2 with mouse support.
It's coming. You know it is. We have Diablo on Switch 1.
That said, throw it to the stash, man. My original question: anything like kind of blow your mind away? Like, oh man, this is great for Switch 2.
Yeah, Cyberpunk was impressive because I played it and I got to see how good it looked. The colors, again, the HDR is very apparent.
Was
I
it a
have the
solid
game on
frame rate?
PS5. What's that?
Was it a solid frame rate?
Yeah,
It was 30, right? I think I heard they want
30.
to they want to shoot for a 40.
No, it
but
was
they
40.
have- No,
They
it
had
was running
perform-
at 40.
it was 40.
They have the performance mode, right? Oh,
It was
I
40.
saw an article that they wanted to do a 40 FPS mode, but I didn't know that they actually had a 40 FPS mode already.
Yeah,
They
40
did.
FPS and 30 docked. Or not 30 docked, but 30 handheld. They didn't have handheld on display, but
Yeah.
Okay,
that's what I confirmed.
interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Okay.
ran really good. That's one of the things that was really impressive to me because we all know that like Cyberpunk in itself, the game's a technical achievement. When it first came out, that game was looked at as like the next gen game, right? Almost like Crisis back in the
Yeah.
day,
Or
right?
Watch Dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, and so to see
Well, it
that,
should have been, but it came out like
I know.
as a heaping dumpster fire.
Yeah. In fact, yeah, I had Cyberpunk pre-ordered on PS4. I still have my Steelbook.
Oh
I
my
upgraded
gosh.
it to PS5 now.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and
I
now,
played that
like,
game on PS4 too. Don't do that again. Never making that mistake.
No, you tried to play it on PS4. Didn't
Yeah.
work.
Both I bought it and my cousin, and I told my cousin, I was like, hey, I didn't even install it yet. Don't play it. Don't play it yet. It's got a lot of issues right now. Just hold off. And I remember him asking me like a year later. And he had asked me a couple times, but a year later, is it safe yet? I'm like, might want to wait for a PS5 version. So to see this running on Switch 2, the way it did, I was like, dude, this is like 100% playable, like enjoyable playable. To the point that I walked away thinking, do I give him my money again? This would be really fun to play, like portably.
I never played it,
Right.
so like for me, I'm like, oh, this is
Yeah,
might
yeah.
be
all on the cart, which is also appealing for physical.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So in
That
my
red
impressions,
cartridge.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Course.
it's this. No, it's this. Yeah, it's the 64 gig cart. So this has the DLC on it too. Redec confirmed, and the thing is that the DLC is $30. It rarely goes on sale, and I know it rarely goes on sale because I have it on my wish list, and I don't get notifications. And so you're essentially paying $70 to be able to play this portably and get everything. You're paying $40 for the game. I think it's a really good deal. And again, like when you see this in person, the HDR doesn't come through in this video, but I think it looks fantastic.
I have a question, and you might not have the answer to this. Maybe you guys just know because technical know-how. But the 40 FPS mode, if that only works in docked, if I'm not mistaken, wouldn't you need like a 120 hertz television to be able to like actually see the 40 FPS?
Yeah, like
Because the
VR.
TV would have to have a variable refresh rate.
Yeah,
right?
VR. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Metroid was 120 hertz. I think they used all the same TVs there.
Right. My point is though, for anyone who has a 60 hertz television,
A lot of
even
people.
though
Yeah.
they won't be able to see the 40 FPS, even though it's lower than 60. It's all about how it's like divisible, right?
Correct. No,
Hmm.
that's right. A lot of people
So
won't be able to see it
Very
because,
interesting.
yeah, a lot of people don't have 120 hertz TVs. Like they are still fairly new. Like they came on the market. I had this talk with somebody on my YouTube comments. Like, oh, the TVs came out in 2020, and I'm like, well, yeah, 2 models came out at the end of the year in December. I looked it up. Yes, and then the next year there was like 9 models total. So like this didn't become mainstream to have HDMI 2.1, 120 hertz with VRR until like 2023 is when it started becoming mainstream.
Yeah, and we're talking in the TV space because like monitors have been way in this realm for a long time.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people I know that they game on monitors, like even their consoles, they console game on monitors. But yeah, the TV thing is very, very interesting. And sometimes I've noticed this on certain TV models, just for those who know, because sometimes you don't use this mode because you can get better colors than others. The game mode is often the mode that will have your 120 hertz because it's like literally the only piece of content that uses it is games.
Right.
So sometimes it's locked behind that game mode on your guys' TV. So I mean, you guys might have a TV at home that supports it. You just don't know because you don't use that mode because it's not always the best picture quality. But you can also manually adjust your. If you ever know, you can always manually adjust your TV for any picture you want. People just don't always want to mess with all those settings.
Yeah, but if you don't have enough hertz, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, yep. You gotta have the 120. I know this one behind me does 120. So yeah, I looked it up as soon as they announced 120. Right after I was like, okay, I gotta look this up. Yeah, okay, I have 120.
It's funny because the TV I have, I think I got like maybe a year and a half ago, and I was like, I'll probably won't need 120.
Yeah, right, right.
Was
And
wrong.
then I was thinking, I'm like, well, geez, for my live streams, okay, I can't stream in 120, but I might want to play in 120. And then I was sitting here, I'm like, oh, none of these monitors here could do that. In fact, one of them's a 30 hertz monitor. I'm like, well, the 30 hertz one, you're the one getting pitched. I am replacing you with a 120 hertz HDR monitor. So I'm like, all right, yeah, this is cool. I never. I mean, I'm like you, Andres. I never thought, oh, I'm not gonna have to change my monitor on my streaming setup. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I don't need 120. There's no way it'll be 120.
I mean, getting a monitor for PC 1440p 120 is not as bad as.
I mean,
like
yeah, there'll never be 4K 120 on Switch 2. They said 4K 60 was top. Which, by the way, You know who was okay? It was Next Handheld, right? That was like that insider or the leaker that was like right about almost everything.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were also the one that said 30 was the top at 4K, and they were obviously
Yeah,
wrong.
I just there. I mean, there was no way that was correct.
Yeah, that just didn't even make sense.
Nintendo GameCube had 30 FPS, 60 FPS. Like,
You know, it just didn't even.
yeah,
Anyways, that was the only part of his
I
information.
think even older systems had 60 FPS.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
that was the only. And by the way, this isn't me throwing shit at Next Handed. He was right about so much stuff.
I think it was just a translation.
translation
Something was lost in communication because that's
communication.
I agree.
It didn't even make sense. And then the people are like, well, maybe it's just the game can only run at 4K 30. That and then it's like, okay, well, literally the Zelda games are 4K 60. Or 4K 40 60 or whatever. We know Metroid Prime 4 for sure is 4K 60. So it's like, okay. It didn't even make sense. I'm not saying that a lot of games will be 4K 60, by the way. A lot of games will probably be 4K 30 with a performance.
I think Metroid Prime 4 is probably gonna be like one of the rare
ones.
that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
I
think 4K 30 is gonna be more common, and then you have performance mode at like 1080p 60 or whatever. But and you'll have Metroid won't be the only 120 FPS game. There'll be some others, but
how wild is it though that we can talk about Metroid Prime 4 being a 4K 60 game? Because we talk about Xbox and PlayStation. It's very, very rare for any game to be 4K 60.
Yeah,
Totally.
So to see Prime 4 hit that, it's
Totally.
kind of wild.
yeah.
And again, it goes to Nate's point about first parties being able to take advantage of the hardware a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah.